In One Piece chapter 1118, Luffy regains Gear 5, goes up against another Elder, and triggers the awakenings of two of the world government's worst nightmares. The cover page features Yamato happily humming and eating a bento while finally setting off on what is certain to be an incredible journey. We've spent 8 covers on preparation, so who knows what Yamato will get into. After being tossed by War Curry, the Iron Giant became a big problem for many of the Marines. They had no idea what this metal monster was, but could only panic as it threatened to sink their ship. It began plunging into the depths and did the same for some of the nearby ships. The broadcast snail within it fell unconscious. We then have a few additional words from Dr. Vegapunk's message, and their name was. So someone or something's name is relevant to what he planned to say about those with the D initial. Maybe he wanted to mention Nefertari D. Lily. Now, fully submerged in water, the Iron Giant wondered where Joyboy was. As it sank even further, the robot questioned where Joyboy went. And now, I have to wonder if these questions are entirely in the present tense. Maybe they apply to the past as well. We know that Joyboy was supposed to do certain things like help out the fishmen, but ultimately wasn't able to. Imu even has what we may assume to be Joyboy's massive straw hat. The Iron Giant wanted their paths to cross. It was certain that Joyboy was nearby somewhere. They considered all of this to be very strange. The big guy finally came online after 200 years, only to be knocked into the sea shortly afterwards. Meanwhile, the remaining Navy ships were reacting to the colossal boar monster. Seeing the Elders was already taboo, but it's not like they had much of a choice in this case. And the warrior god of justice does not look very happy. The signal from Dr. Vegapunk's livestream was lost. Viewers were left wondering if something bad might have happened since the message cut the doctor off mid-sentence. Once they began questioning what could have shut the broadcast down, they pondered what could have possibly killed the beloved genius. They were left wondering if someone arranged for him to be killed on account of his grave sins. In Alabasta, they were less willing to believe that the world government would just erase him. But unbeknownst to them, that is exactly what the government did to their late king. This is made even more ironic by the fact that Luffy is believed to be the culprit because he was said to have taken Dr. Vegapunk hostage. Meanwhile, his whole task has been to save the guy, and he already saved Alabasta in the past. Then we see a king that I don't recognize. The chef in front of him was certain that the world government would never kill the world's greatest mind, even if some laws were broken. Which just goes to show how much the government benefits from doubt. Leo, being as gullible as ever, was shocked by the revelation that this was Luffy's fault after all, much to the dismay of a nearby Rebecca. Back on Egghead, Vegapunk York was contacted by the Elders. Despite her reverence and fear, she wasn't very formal with her reply. The Gorosei wanted to know how many Vegapunks managed to survive other than herself. To answer this, York double-checked to see who was still connected to Punk Records. The 2 hits were the 2nd Vegapunk Lilith and the 5th Vegapunk Atlas. This is, of course, an ineffective strategy since Stella and Edison are disconnected but still alive. Regardless, York let the Elders know that Lilith was still above on the Labostratum, while Atlas was at the northeastern coast. Amongst themselves, the Gorosei decided to terminate the threats. After seeing it for himself firsthand, Mars was under the impression that Punk Records was made to keep working and growing even after the death of Vegapunk Stella. And thanks to York, they would be able to access its vast knowledge. Any other Vegapunks would be unnecessary loose ends and inevitable troublemakers. And to me, this concept makes the Egghead incident feel like a 3-way concession and distribution of resources. The world government gains York, Punk Records, and the Mother Flame. The Straw Hats gain Bonney, control over the Pacifista, and ideally, the other remaining Vegapunks. The Blackbeard Pirates gain Caribou, the location of 2 ancient weapons, and now have access to Saint Saturn's image thanks to Katarina Devon. The Giants, meanwhile, came for friendship, and now that they have it, are ready to set sail. Dory, Brogy, and Luffy were all happy to hop aboard, and that is exactly what they did. They were relieved to have finally made it, and Bonney even calls Luffy by his name for once instead of calling him Straw Hat. Frankie and Sanji looked up at the giant captains while Luffy enjoyed just how huge the ship was. He also wondered where the rest of his crew was. The voices of 2 young vice admirals commanded their forces to be relentless. Letting the enemy escape when they have so many battleships would be unacceptable. But the Giants were just too strong. The Marines wondered if their senior officers would be alright. And that's because Vice Admiral Dahl, Vice Admiral Bluegrass, and even the mechanized Sea Beast had been turned into little tykes. Although she wasn't a fan of her more adorable form, Bluegrass could not help but marvel at the vastness of Bonney's power. Despite its limitations, the Toshi Toshi no Mi is an incredibly capable power. Bonney herself is still only 12 years old, though we can hardly say that we've seen all that the age fruit has to offer, which we'll see more of soon. Bonney mocked the Marine big shots while clutching onto a pistol. She knew that they'd be in big trouble for letting her escape. But honestly, even Nujuro didn't manage to take her head, so it's hardly an easy task. Kashi had been brought back on their ship after taking a beating from Vice Admiral Dahl. Luffy was really happy to see more of his giant friends, and they were happy to see him too. Sanji let Nami know over communicator that their group has started to leave. Nami promised to be right behind them. Thanks to Edison's sacrifice, they'll be able to make it to the ocean too. But as Nujuro could be seen rising up nearby, Nami also added that they might need a bit of help to land safely. Sanji was eager to assist and considered Nami, Robin, and Lilith to be his top priority. He went as far as to say that even if they sink, nothing would stop him from rescuing them, which pissed Usopp off since the rest of them were excluded. Frankie vowed to make sure the ship is okay, and again, Usopp was livid. Just then, something was spotted on its way to the giant ship. It was the Itsumade form of Saint Marcus Mars. Sanji gritted his teeth as the Elder made his approach, the mention of which caught Bonnie's attention. This will be the third monster Elder that she's dealt with personally. At the same time, Luffy was already becoming rather well acquainted with the giant crew's chef. The cook had already been warned about Luffy's appetite by his captains and prepared a bunch of food in advance. But he hardly expected to see it all be eaten in one fell swoop. Luffy apologized, but if he was going to use Gear 5 again, he'd need the calories. He told the big man to just cook some more for later, which made the giant laugh. Mars unleashed an incinerating beam attack. It was shielded against by the giants in an effort to protect the small folk, but that did not stop the flames from spreading, which would ruin everything if it makes it to their sails. The names of the shield bearers are revealed to be Bjorn and Sig. Historically, Bjorn Ironside was a Viking chief, and Sigyn is a god of Norse mythology and the wife of Loki. And although you never know, I don't really expect Sig to be Prince Loki's wife. The Marines were totally confused by the regional big bird supporting them. Sanji thanked the flaming giants for protecting them. Bonney insisted that they get Stella and her dad out of harm's way. Atlas then offered to carry them. Dory and Brogy were frustrated by the emergence of yet another monster. And unfortunately, there was no ignoring this one since it could just fly after them indefinitely. The Elder felt similarly, and declared that none of them would be allowed to escape. That's when Frankie felt something that caught him totally off guard. The sea and everything it touched began to bounce to a certain rhythm. The Marines feared that this was yet another earthquake, while Luffy was very pleased to have a full stomach. As this upheaval continued, the Marines could only wonder if everything Dr. Vegapunk said was true. Because right about now, with the water feeling like the top of a trampoline, it sure seems like the sea levels are in fact rising. But Saint Mars knew better and shifted his attention. Luffy found Bonney and happily called out to her. The kid was shocked and immediately said Nika's name. But sadly, Luffy still has no idea what she is talking about, and poor Bonney has been name-hopping like crazy. Dory and Brogy were having a blast, dancing along to the drums of liberation, but Brogy insisted that one of them needed to stop dancing and focus on the flames. Luffy urged Bonney to come along with him and get rid of any troublemakers, but the young pirate hardly believed she could keep up with him. Still, Luffy did not let up. Although he didn't really understand her powers, he was confident that she'd be able to handle it. Hearing this, she remembered what he first said to her about the transformation, that is just how he looks when he is totally free. Thanks to that, Bonney summoned the power of a distorted future. Kuma's body remained motionless as the memory of his vow to Ginny was shown. The future Bonney asked for was one where she is totally free. And now, we have two Nikas. Double the drums and double the fun. Luffy is a big fan of this, and so am I. The Marines had no idea what they were looking at, and suddenly, Mars wasn't acting too tough, and Luffy is ready to try his luck against yet another Elder. At this point, Nusjuro will be the only one left that he hasn't traded blows with, and Bonney is ready for a fight too. Elsewhere, the Drums of Liberation were having an effect that War Curry and Jupiter were not very fond of. Something was wrong, and they suddenly needed to hurry. Now, it's important to remember that the Iron Giant's attacks from 2 centuries ago were not actually stopped. The machine just stopped, as if out of power. But the presence of Joyboy changes that, so this boxing match is not over yet. And again, there are 2 of them. Also, the Iron Giant being confused about Joyboy coming and going may point to the form having been more permanent for Luffy's ancient predecessor. Now, Oda and the creator of Naruto, Kishimoto, are very close colleagues and friends. Kishimoto, for one, has expressed his love of huge kaiju battles several times and made sure to incorporate them into the early stages and endgame of his series. And now, it looks like Oda is expressing the same fascination and pattern. On account of these 2 legendary warriors, the Iron Giant has found its mark and is ready to cross paths with Joyboy yet again. And to make things even better, there is no break next week. We've got a bunch of stories dealing with hiatuses right now, so it's really nice to have One Piece to depend on. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.